right, here we go. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 in 2023 of the Power Horse Podcast. And unfortunately, we bring to you a little bit more somber setting and attitude today as we remember the life and legacy of Ken Block in our Ken Block special. Today we're going to be talking about Mr. Kenneth Paul Block, born November 21st, 1967, the Hoonigan Racing Division founder, formerly known as Monster World Racing Team, created in 2012. He was also co-founder of DC Shoes. Just a quick rundown of some of Ken's racing career. FIA World Rallycross Championship. He had no wins, 2 podiums. FIA ERX Supercar Championship, 1 win. Global Rallycross Championship, 6 wins. Rally America, 16 wins. World Rally Championship had no wins, 18 points. WRC is extremely difficult. Obviously not as difficult as Group B, but really, really difficult. So 18 points for Ken there. And then, of course, as we know him very well for his Gymkhana videos. In 2009, Ken produced his first Gymkhana video. What is Gymkhana? I'm glad you fucking asked. when was the first time that you watched one of Mr. Block's videos? First time. Where were you? How old were you? What were you doing?
You know, I think it's first off, I think it's funny that like I can even remember like when it actually happened. I mean, I think the most important moments in our lives is like it's just leaves something to be said that we can remember like these certain moments like years later. And I do remember it's an algebra class. I'm pretty sure it was high school. It was in the ninth grade. Yeah, it was Algebra 1 class. It was in freshman year of high school. And I think I remember seeing it for the first time. I knew who Ken Block was at the time because I played the Dirt games. And I absolutely loved the Dirt games. And I think Dirt 2 had just come out. So I was playing that, and I knew who Ken Block was, and then I actually saw his first Gymkhana, or not his first, but one of his Gymkhana videos, and he was in the Ford Fiesta, and it was one of the industrial factory settings. I think it was one of those, and it was like 10 minutes long, I want to say, and just continuous stuff that he was doing throughout the video. And I remember just being awed by like not only like his car control, but the production quality it must have taken to perfect every last moment. Because I mean, to do that video had to come down to milliseconds of timing, of perfection to get that to work. And it really was fascinating to me. And I remember following him a little bit more after that. Of course, following his social media, and I think that was when the world really started to realize who he was. And of course, I saw the episode he was on Top Gear, and that was a big one too, where he did Gymkhana stuff on Top Gear, and then later on, Dirt 3 came out, and Dirt 3 was like all about Ken Block, and like you could unlock his car and everything, and really. Ever since after that, I can't remember the exact year that came out, but really ever since after that, that's pretty much when I became a huge fan of his. He stuck out. I mean, I knew a lot of rally drivers, knew a lot of rally cross drivers, could say their names. Everybody knows who Travis Pastrana is, the rally driver, but Ken was like the stunt guy. Like he transcended rally and rally cross and really just being a stunt man in general. So a huge guy in the racing, motoring, not just racing, but just in cars in general, just motoring industry. He was a really, really huge figurehead, and it's a heavy loss for sure.
It's a blow.
Yeah,
it is a blow.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time I saw, in passing, I think I had seen crazy videos of some Mustang stuff. Because very early, like in high school, I was a Mustang guy, kind of. But I wasn't into it in the level that I was when I got into college. And a good friend of mine kind of got me into cars, and then I really got into racing because of Dale. And I remember I was sitting freshman year, and I was working on resumes, I think, in college. And a friend of mine was in one of the computer labs, and where I was working, and he had owned a Mustang. This was before I even owned one, and we're talking, and he says, "You want to see a cool Mustang? Look at this." And he showed me the video of Ken Block racing through London, and I was like, well, this all had to be on a closed set, and this and that, and I think I was like, no, this is in the streets of London. Like, obviously they had shut down streets, and it was during like non-busy times. However, this was in the streets of London, and to me, I was like, wow. And Ken Block has been the only other person I can think of that is person, not like team or entity. The only other person, individual I can think of that has been as big of an influence in my life as far as interest in motorsports is probably like Von Gittin Jr. And Dale knows that I worship the altar that the ground at which Von Gittin Jr. walks, but Ken Block. I started the show and I started the page with the intent of kind of mirroring a little bit of what Roadkill was doing, where they were just two regular guys going around doing car stuff. And I said that I wanted to have a show that was like that was very similar to just normal people doing the American part of the American dream, which I very much feel is car stuff, racing stuff. And I think the thing that stood out the most about Ken is that he was just a normal guy. It was extremely gifted and talented, and he was a normal guy who was doing extraordinary things. Because all the interviews that I've seen, I was seeing tweets from people that he worked with and posts where people were talking about how very humble and modest of a guy he was, that he didn't like being in front of the camera, and he was more comfortable with going hundreds of miles an hour or speeding around corners or drifting around corners on cliff sides than he was like, you put a camera in front of him and he was just like so
he liked his car being on camera.
He liked his car being on camera for sure,
but not him.
Yeah, not him. And then seeing I didn't even know, like, for a long time he was just this enigma, and then seeing him, like, he had a family, he had kids, and then seeing him with his daughter Leah, and seeing her first drift in that Fox Body Mustang, and seeing her go forward and get into the sport. And she actually does rally. She has been doing rally, and I really sincerely hope that she continues with it despite this. Just seeing that was like, he's just a normal person like us, but he's a normal person who does extraordinary things. And I think that was that was also a big driver for doing this. It was that normal people, you can have something like Ken had if you have the will and you have the imagination to just make your dreams a reality. And I think that's what Ken always did.
He was so different from, like, what a lot of other, racing, not racing, and I keep saying racing because that's how I know him, but he's not just racing. That's my point, is that he was just with cars in general. Like, he was a stunt man. I think that's what I would call him first and foremost. Yeah, he was an entrepreneur, but he was a stunt man, I think. And he was able to kind of translate that into what he did on a racetrack, what he did on a rally course, and what he did in his Gymkhana videos. I mean, he of course, his social media influence exploded as a result, as it should have. And that's not really something that a whole lot of other drivers and folks of that personality could really do. I mean, there's been a couple of others. You mentioned Von Gittin, and of course, the drift guys are, of course, the stuff they do is sexy, right? So we love watching that stuff. Right. That's interesting. But Ken, he transcended that. He took that and ran away with it. He did so much more than just drift. What was the video? I think he did it with the Hoonigan, and he did one where one of the cars had the hydraulics, had a hydraulics, like, it was like a bunny hopping car, and he, like, drifted. He timed it perfectly to where he was drifting underneath it as it would go up into the air. And I can't remember. I don't know if that might have been the London one, I'll be honest, but I can't remember. And
yes, I can't remember which one. I know the one you're talking about, though.
Yeah, but I remember watching that one and being like, oh my god, dude, like, this guy is so much more than what we keep saying he is. And the first one I ever watched was the one that he was like, again, the industrial factory, and he was on a harbor's edge, and like, I mean, the tire was literally, his right rear was literally on the very edge of the platform of the dock.
Yeah.
Like any closer, he would have fallen into the water. But this guy was so freaking good at what he did that he was in putting it in his motto, just ain't care. He just went with it because he knew he was so good, and he practiced so much that he was such a great talent behind the wheel of that car. That he was good at he was pretty decent at racing, but he was one hell of a wheel man, and I think one of the best really in the world. I mean, I'm just gonna put that out there.
I think that is probably the best way to describe him as stuntman and wheelman.
So much more.
Stunt guy.
He was a
and
mixture of things, and I think that's what made him so cool, so awesome to follow.
I think, as the saying goes, and rarely people know the full saying, is that
2 hours later.
Here's the quote, that a jack of all trades is a master of none. But the full quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but a jack of all trades is better than a master of one. And I think that having all these different skills and all these different abilities to do all these different things, like in the past we've talked about NASCAR drivers who go over to the Rolex and vice versa type of stuff, and you have drivers kind of like crossing into different things. Ken did all kinds of stuff, and I think that's extremely notable. You actually met Ken.
Yeah, it's first off, I've never heard of that the full quote of jack of all trades, the master of none, and I find that funny because I guess you could really say he really wasn't a master of anything, any one particular thing. So he made his own thing.
Yeah,
he ended up making Gymkhana.
Absolutely, he was a very. I think that you talk about, like, when you talk about these different classes, you could sit there and you can say, you can name this person in rally, you can name this person in drift, this person in NASCAR. You sit there, Richard Petty, NASCAR household name. You sit there and say Vaughn Gittin Jr., that is a drift name. You can say
Michael Schumacher with F1.
Michael Schumacher with F1. What was Pastrana and rally. But I think that Ken was the type of person who would look at that stuff and goes, I'm just gonna do my own thing, and that's really what he did. He just did his own thing, and that, I think, has had, and it's not to take away from anything that these other people have done, but I think that has had the biggest impact on our generation, is that this is a man who was like the Evel Knievel of our generation, but jacked up to like 1,000 with some of the stuff that he'd done, and the broad scope of stuff that he'd done.
That's a really good way of putting it. I really like that. I'm going to use that from now on. I think he was like kind of the modern version of Evel Knievel, and whereas Evel Knievel, liked to do his stuff on motorcycles and dirt bikes, Ken Block liked to do it behind the wheel of a Mustang.
Yeah.
So, or a Ford Fiesta, or an Audi or Ford Escort or whatever. So.
Or cars that he couldn't even fit into. Like his RS200 could not fit into that thing.
Yeah.
Could not fit into it.
So I did get to meet him. I want to say it was maybe 2015 or 2016. I can't remember. So again, I really first got into him around freshman year of high school, and I think it was around junior or senior year. He came down to near where I was, and he was around where I was to do the Daytona, because he was in the global rallycross before that fell apart, but the GRC, which was basically the American rallycross before what it was now. This was when rallycross was still kind of growing, and I was getting into it because I really enjoyed watching it. And they were hosting an event at Daytona. I did Daytona International Speedway, and I kind of thought, oh man, I definitely gotta go to this. I gotta check this out. So I got tickets as soon as I could, and he was in town, of course, because he was with the circuit at the time, and he went to the mall nearby. I think it was a Maui Nick shop, and I guess it was one of his sponsors. I can't remember. And he went to the Maui Nick shop and he posted it on Instagram like earlier that morning. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be at this, blah blah blah. Come on down." I'm like, "Oh my god, it's right down the street." It's like right down the street. Like, yeah. Oh man, well I'm gonna get out. Like once I get out of school, I'm gonna head down there and go get an autograph. So I got down there, and of course my awkward self sees like a couple of other of my buddies who also follow Ken Block, and we all meet up, and we're like, "Oh my god, this is so cool!" And
doing the fanboy thing.
Just doing honestly, yeah. I mean, awkward high school me like got to meet him, get a picture with him, and I got a poster autograph by him, which I'm gonna find now and frame. But that was really like my first celebrity that I actually got to meet in person and like actually like shake their hand and get a photo with, and definitely a fond memory. And I think the best part about that was that like he was just in a shop, like, and it wasn't even that busy that day. Like it really wasn't. There was like nobody in that mall. But here comes this big dude, this huge celebrity coming in, and he's signing autographs in that place. And then, of course, the shop that we were in, the Maui Knicks, was packed. But my point was that, like, I got to do this after class one day. And it was just, like, the coolest afternoon because I got to see Ken Block. And, of course, I went to the race that Sunday, and I think he finished second. And I remember, another thing I wanted to remember about that weekend was I remember he was second place in the finale, in the final race. And he could have run down the leader. He could have done his best to make an effort to run down the leader. But I think he decided not to, and instead he opted to put on a show. And I remember he drifted, smoke and all, around every corner on the final lap, and including the final corner, because he just wanted to put on a show for the fans. He was just there to have fun. He was a showman. And he was there to have fun and show off, like, hey, yeah, I'm here to race, I want to win, and he, hell, he finished second place, which isn't bad at all, but he's like, yeah, I want to win, but I want to put on a good show, too, and he always did, man. He always did, and that's the kind of stuff that I always have fond memories.
Yeah, so, when I found out, I actually found out from Dale. I was extremely sick. I was over at a girlfriend's house, over at my girlfriend's house, not a girlfriend's house, but I was over at my girlfriend's house, and I had just I was starting to feel better. I don't know if it was the flu or what, but I was feeling better, and I got a text from Dale, and he was like, Ken Block is dead. And at first I was like dead as in like they're gonna cancel him, like he said something about someone and now he's over, and he was like, no man, like he just died in a snowmobile accident. And he called me and we talked about it, and like you were out to eat.
I was actually I was out with my family, my girlfriend, and so I was with my grandma and my mother and my girlfriend, and my grandma is from Buffalo, so she was checking on the Buffalo Bills game, and this was the same night that Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills player, went into cardiac arrest and collapsed in the field, and there was a big scare, and they had to ambulance him off the field, and of course everyone's heard about that by now, but and she was like, oh my goodness, like, oh, this just happened, like, he's in critical condition, like, oh my god, he might die. And I'm like, whoa, no way, like, this is, oh my god, that's terrible. And I went onto Twitter to check, to see if there were any updates about it. And the first thing I see is nothing about Damar Hamlin, but instead, it's about the passing of Ken Block. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And I just remember, like, just the sorrow from that night. Like, that was the absolute worst thing that I could have seen. I mean, I'm laughing because of just, like, how, like, the tragedy of it. And I remember thinking, like, I'm like, oh my god, like, this is pretty much the first person that I was truly, the first celebrity, I should say, the first celebrity that I truly admired, and he just passed away so suddenly.
So sudden.
And I mean...
And in such a simple way. Like, he was just out being Ken.
And the scary thing was that, like, I remember him posting, like, a photo of himself with the snowmobile equipment, like, hours earlier. And I remember thinking, like, oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. And I remember, I'm like, of course.
I gotta tell somebody. I gotta share this.
No, yeah, and I was like, I gotta tell somebody. I gotta talk to somebody about this, because my mom, my family, my girlfriend, they don't know who that is. They don't care.
Yeah, they don't get it.
They don't care about who Ken Block is. And I'm like, who do I call? I'm like, and they realize that I'm like, just suddenly full of sorrow and downtrodden. And they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, Ken Block's dead. And they're like, who's that?
Who is Ken Block?
I'm like, race car driver. Like, and they didn't realize, like, how much that actually messed me up. So of course I called Stosh and we talked about that.
And one of the first things that I did was I checked Ken Block's page, and I checked the Hoonigan page, and I didn't see anything, and I was like, this means one of two things: either nothing has happened, and this is a horrible rumor. Not that I didn't believe Dale, but either this is horrible rumor, or the fact that they hadn't posted much in the past several hours. Because Hoonigan's always posting stuff. The fact that they hadn't posted something in like that day really kind of told me that there was something wrong. And I went to his page, and you can see, I actually screenshot it 12 hours ago. It's a picture of tons of snow, and he put a sticker in of Stan from South Park, and the sticker says, hell yeah. And then there's another one, it's just a picture of covered, like, cars and vehicles and stuff. And I think then the last one in here is then it just says sketchy and snowy drive with some great snowboard entertainment, and he was listening to Travis Rice the Bomb, whole episode 137. Whole episode 137. And I have no idea who that is. I have no idea who that is. He tagged several people in it, so obviously these were people that Ken was acquainted with, that he knew, and he was giving a shout out to. And it seems like this was right wherever he was going to just enjoy time with friends and family, doing some snowmobiling. It was just eerie to see those last few posts, and I was saying to myself, like, this had to be real, because there was no posts of him. It was 12 or 13 hours prior that he had posted that, and there was nothing recent. And I was like, if Ken was out having fun and doing stuff, he would have posted. He would have posted and showed people, like, oh yeah, these were the sick jumps that we were going off of, and yeah, that's ultimately how I learned about the death of motorsport Tony Hawk. How Dale and I learned about it.
You when you hear about, what's the phrase? It's you don't know what you got until it's gone.
Yeah.
I think, like, it's so weird, like, in passing, like, it's not like I was thinking about Ken Block every day or anything like that. Of course I wasn't. But, like, obviously when he was still with us, but it's not like I was thinking about him every day. But when I learned about his passing, I just thought about all the times that I remember watching him, and him being a huge influence on what I do and what I love. And I remember just thinking, like, oh my god, like, this guy has such a big impact, such a much bigger impact on my life than I thought he did. And now he's gone, and I'm never going to get any more stuff. Like, I'm never going to see any more new things from him. I'm never going to see, you know, any new crazy Gymkhana videos. I'm never going to see him race again. I'm never going to see I'm never going to see any of his photos of his dogs, like his huskies, you know?
Yeah.
Or his daughter, like, you know, trying out new car stuff. I'm never going to see any of that again, from him at least. And it's like, you don't realize how much of a big part of your life that is until it's gone. And now it just, like, there are just times where I just think, like, I'll just stop myself and I'm like, oh my god, that's right. Like, Ken Block's he's not here anymore. Like, he's not even alive. He's he's gone. He's not even here. He's not a part of the world. And I have to, like, think, like, that's crazy to me.
And like, I gotta be honest, a lot of people have been equating this to Paul Walker's death, and I have to really be honest. When Paul Walker died, I didn't really care, because I'm not saying that to be mean, but like, I didn't really know. I did not know who Paul Walker was, aside from you saying that's Brian from Fast and Furious, and I was like, I've seen 2 Fast and Furious movies.
I didn't either. I've never seen a Fast and Furious movie,
and
which is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah, it's ironic because, you know, like,
Cars.
I understand that Fast and Furious is a really big impact on our generation. I understand that now, seeing a lot of the posts and stuff. But like, personally, I looked at people like Vaughn Gittin Jr. and Ken Block as a bigger impact personally on me, and I kind of understand now the upset that people had when Paul Walker passed. That obviously, like, I never met Ken Block, but and it is different from a family member passing, somebody that you actually, a family member, a friend that you actually knew, obviously. And I've never been one to be like, get upset over celebrities dying. However, Ken Block, just like Paul Walker, and like people have said, Ken Block, like Paul Walker, was part of our motorsport racing car community. And Ken Block, like Paul Walker, was a car guy. And I fully appreciate now a lot more and understand people being upset about Paul Walker, because I am upset about Ken Block dying. I'm very upset about that, because like Dale said, we'll never have another Gymkhana video with Ken again. That being said, I want to see Leah do Ken Block style Gymkhana videos.
That's the person I feel most terrible about right now.
I feel horrible about her, and when you were talking about, like, I'll never see another video of him doing car stuff with his daughter. Yeah. I remember watching her, and I remember Ken talking about it. I remember the look on Ken's face when he was like, we have a special treat today. My daughter got her driver's license, or my daughter's getting ready to get her driver's license. I can't remember what it was. And he was like, and he built this car for her. And this car was the most, like, hood rat, ratchet, Hoonigan. This thing just said Hoonigan on it. 1990s Mustang, Fox body Mustang. And he had decked this thing out. And he was like, I'm going to teach my daughter how to drift in this, and you all are going to see it firsthand. And I remember the look on his face and the smile when he presented it to her, and when, I mean, just videos like that. I think that was the fact that, like, Ken was just a dad. Ken was a dad. Ken was a husband. And Ken was just a normal freaking human being. He was a flesh and blood man like you and I, and he was a very humble man, and he was very much about his fans. And I don't think there was any from what I saw, I don't think there was any arrogance in him, and I think you could tell that from his videos. I don't think that's not something that you can just, as much screen time as he had, as much in front of the camera time as he had, that's not something you just hide. You know, that's not something, that's not an act, because you see people like Candyman there, Kyle Busch or Kurt Busch. You know, you see those guys, and even with some of the drivers that I do like, it still comes out sometimes where they show a different side of them. But Ken was just a really genuine guy. And,
you know, what could he possibly have to hide, though? You know, I mean, the man had he had one heck of a life.
yeah.
When you think about it, I mean this in a complete positive way, is that he had built an amazing empire.
Well, but I'd be very arrogant. I could see people. That's what I mean.
That's one way you could go.
I could see people, you know, with all the money that he made, all the influence that he had accumulated. I could see him being very, you know, like, who are you? But the guy just seemed to have time for. He had time for the fans. He had time to be there for the fans. He had time to be there for the people. And some of the videos that have now that people are using on Instagram to commemorate like his life, which is fantastic, is like people asking him questions, people interviewing Ken and being like, one of my favorites in there is like, do you like, ask him what his legacy is, and he's kind of just like perplexed by being confronted with this like legacy. What are you talking about? I'm just making like the look on his face just kind of says like, I'm just making cool videos, dude, that people like.
I swear to God, he literally just seemed like he was making a living doing off of what he really liked to do. And he was just really good at it.
He was like, it almost seemed he was like, legacy. What are you talking about? I'm just out here having fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said was, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
He said, his basic message to everybody was, don't be an asshole. And I think that if any message in the sport and the industry gets out there, that's probably one of the greatest ones I've heard. Just don't be an asshole. Just in general too. Don't be an asshole. Just be a good dude.
There's the common saying of only the good die young. And there are times where I don't truly believe that. But this is definitely one of those times. And I know he was, gosh, let me do the math here. Had to have been.
In his 50s.
55?
About that, yeah.
55, 56?
The man didn't seem old, though.
He really didn't. That's the crazy thing. He really did not seem that old. I honestly would never have guessed he was in his 50s. But I mean, with the full speed ahead attitude that he had. But man, isn't that amazing? Like, he was living his life at the fullest every day. And in a way, we should probably celebrate that, because yes, it's very sad that he's gone. It's very sad that we're never going to see any more content from him. But the legacy he left behind of going all out, doing what he did and he loved every single day. And look at what he did. You know, look at what he built. Look at what he accomplished that no other human being actually did. I mean, you could equate it to a lot of other folks out there, but what he did in that race car, what he did on YouTube with his Gymkhana videos, no one's really ever done before. No one's ever done it like he did. And he's just, that should be celebrated, because he's unlike anybody else, and he lived a life unlike any other, and he built one hell of an empire, and that should be celebrated in the end. Is that he lived
a full life.
It was cut short, unfortunately, very unfortunately and unexpectedly, but he lived a full life.
Yeah.
And a very fulfilling one.
I one of the first people that commented on my post, which thank you so much, guys, to the people who've not only viewed but given likes on that post and commented on there. I've read all the comments, and constantly I'm still getting a lot more Like I get notifications on it still all the time, and to see the outpouring love that people had for Ken. Just I've gotten people from all over the world. I didn't realize that the post was going to reach this far, but that of people just the outpouring for Ken, for Block, for 43. But one of the first comments on there was he died doing what he loved, and I was so angry by that comment. I really was. I was sitting there and I'm like, fuck that. Like, he died doing what he loved. Like, no, I don't want him to die doing what he loved. Like, and I thought back to all those videos of watching Ken, like, that right rear wheel going almost off the side of a dock, or him almost going off the side of a cliff, and him within centimeters of like rubbing up against guardrails and stuff, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn it. And my first thought was to be like very angry about it, angry and upset, and the more I've thought about it is that, like, yeah, he was just out hooning. He was out hooning. He lived a very full life, and there was no holds barred. There was no safety on his life, and you can't fault him for that. As upset as we want to be that we've lost an icon in the whole industry, the name Ken Block Hoonigan, which I hope if this ever gets to Leo Block, I sincerely hope, and to the rest of Ken's kids, I hope someday to see all three of them in the motorsports industry following in their father's footsteps, because I think that it's a selfish thing to say, but I think I know the world of motorsports would love to see that. But yeah, he did die doing what he loved. Some of the cars that Ken owned included a 2011 Ford Fiesta, a 2015 Ford Fiesta ST RX 43. It's one of his racing Fiestas. 2006 Subaru WRX STI, the 65 Ford Mustang Hoonigan RTR version 1, the Hoonigan RTR version 2. I believe one of them was supercharged and the other one was a twin turbo. Insanely, like, 1,600 horsepower cars, insanely powerful. I remember Ken commenting on them. I think it was for one of the Forza games. He was commenting on it, and he was like, is the car as bad in Forza as it is in real life, that there's just, like, no steering this thing because it has so much torque, and you kind of just point it in a direction? Like, what a thing to say about that car, that, like, he whipped that car like he drove it every day, and he's sitting there and he's like, yeah, there's really no steering or controlling that thing. It's just a wild horse. The Ford Focus RS RX number 43, another Ford Fiesta, 2014 Ford Fiesta, 91 Escort RS, the Kazi V2, 1977 F-150 Hoona truck, the Audi S1 e-tron Quattro. I have another list in here. For one of the Gymkhana videos, was a 600 brake horsepower Fiesta. It was in 2013. He's got a Gymkhana 9. Was another one. I think that's actually the same one. The Hoonigan. We have the Ford Escort Mark II RS. Apparently, he had a Ford F-150 Raptor tracks, and it was a Ford Raptor on
Treads.
Yeah,
like a tank.
There's a Subaru Impreza WRX STI, another Fiesta. There's the Hoonigan again. A Can-Am Maverick Max X RS Turbo. And there is the Ford Escort Cosworth, which I believe is the RS Cosworth. Yep, it's the 91 RS Cosworth.
It's good. That's a cool car.
It is a cool car. And then, of course, there's the RS200. RS200? Yeah, his beloved RS200. And then, what car did you find?
The Porsche 911 that he raced in, that he was doing African rallies with, which is
Crazy.
don't know what year it is, and please forgive my ignorance on that. But
There was also one he did a video out there. I don't know if he did it or if Hoonigan did it, but obviously if Hoonigan did it, he did it because Hoonigan wouldn't exist without him. There's a video of them drifting with a Ferrari and a Toyota Supra, and the Toyota Supra, I believe, is the camera chase car for this. And I believe they wrecked one of the cars while doing it, and then they fixed it and they got it going again. We'll put it in post edit. Dale, what is your favorite Ken Block / Hoonigan car? Hoonigan car.
There's a few. I mean, I really like the Porsche that I just mentioned, but that's only because I just saw it.
And because Dale likes Porsche.
Well, yes, but I mean, it's also like an old 60s version of it, and he raced in the African Rally, with his co-driver Alex Golosamino, and it's just a cool looking car. But honestly, it's gotta be his Fiestas from 2014, and forgive me, I gotta find the year of the one that I found, and I think it was 2011. It was the drip colored scheme. That was the one that I really got into. That was the one that I first really saw when I really got into him, was 2011. And I thought that was just the coolest car that I had seen. Also the sexiest, really. I mean, but not just in livery alone, but also just the way he handled it. I mean, that was when I first got into watching him. So that's when I realized, how cool his Gymkhana stuff was. And really ever since then, that was the bar that he had set for himself. Of course, he exceeded it later on, but that was probably the one that's most memorable to me. There's so many others. I love the I love the Escort that he that he did on rallies later on. But that's got to be the one that takes it for me. I know we had 4 different Fiestas, but the 2011 one was probably the one that I liked the most, and just because I just love the look of it, I love what he did with it, and I love the livery.
Yeah. My favorite, Dale actually, earlier Dale was like, well, I'm sure your favorite is the Hoonicorn. Actually, he's not. My favorite car of Ken's is his RS200, and aside from the fact that the RS200 is amazing, they only made a very limited number in the hundreds of the cars, and that they were specifically made for Group B. There is a video out there of Ken just takes his RS200 out for a drive. He's talking about it, and there's a scene in this particular video where he's talking about the car, and the way, we'll put it in post, but the way he talks about the car is the way whenever anybody asks me, why do you put up with that piece of shit car, like, why don't you sell it? Sell the 82. Sell this car. Whenever you have a I had one friend that I had who constantly, whenever I brought up an issue that I was having with the cars, she would always be like, just sell it. Get a Toyota. Get something reliable. Get this. Get that. Just sell the cars. It's a waste of money. Ken really understood. Ken understood the crazy car guys out there who pour money and time and love into, whether it's your 50-year-old shitbox or a 20-year-old shitbox or a brand new car that you worked hard to pay for, to buy. Whether it's brand new in its stock or it's heavily modded and you've poured blood, sweat, and tears into it. Whether you've been a car guy for 50 years and you're 60, 70 years old, and you've had that Dodge Charger RT or that 302 Boss Mustang that you got when you were a teenager in high school, or you are, dare I say it, a Honda kid with a Civic with a laptop that you had a couple $100 in your pocket that you bought and you've been modding with your friends, or whether you've been a car guy for years or you're just a car guy starting out. Ken understood us because Ken was one of us. And dare I say that because Ken really wasn't one of us. We were all like him. And I think that's something that all the car guys from our generation can agree with, is that Ken Block wasn't like us. We were all looking up to, and we were all very much like Ken Block. And for that, I just have to say thank you, Mr. Block. Thank you, 43. Dale?
That's very well put. I really don't have anything else to add. Just, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this, my interest in rally has decreased plummeted as a result. And there's always gonna be a little bit of emptiness, you know?
Yeah.
There's just always gonna be something out there that's just gonna make me feel a little bit empty. Whenever I think about, the fact that he's not here with us anymore, and how weird that's gonna feel. I mean, there's always gonna be more racing. There's always gonna be more cars, new cars, and new faces, new personalities. But 20 years, 30 years from now, I guarantee you, I'm still gonna have that poster that's autographed by him, and I'm gonna be telling people, my kids one day, like, hey, this dude right here, this guy was the man. Let me tell you about how I met him in a mall after high school one day. And I'm never gonna forget that.
Sitting there with your grandkids years from now, and they're like, "Grandpa, who's Ken Block? Who is this? What is Hoonigan? What is Hoonicorn?" And you're like, you sit down and pull out the holopad or whatever we have from years now.
The holograms.
The hologram. They were saying that in the 80s. Yeah, in 2015 they'll have holograms and flying skateboards and flying cars.
Yeah, that's what they sounded like in the 80s.
But years from now, when you're sitting around the fire with your grandkids on your knee, and they say, "Grandpa, what did you do in the great 2020s and 20-teens? And what is Hoonicorn? What is Hoonigan? What is
Yes, that's what
who
they'll
is
ask.
Ken Block?
That's what they'll ask.
Who did you who there you go. Who is that on the poster? Who is Ken Block? And you sit there and you go, Ken Block was a man like you and me, and he was an inspiration to an entire generation. And
there we go. First drive of the
that's all she wrote. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
I mean, it's such a pretty car, and I only drive in pretty conditions, but I also make it a little sketchy today. Has it ever been driven in the rain since you've owned it? You've never driven this car in the rain. No, pretty sunny day summer car. Like, I don't ever drive it in conditions like this. It's sketchy. It's got nice Toyo tires on it that are probably pretty hard in this temperature, and definitely not made for wet weather. So, what could possibly go wrong? He told me to start cleaning this car because it was summertime. It's so beautiful looking right now. Why don't you go show us what it looks like? Okay. By the way, the back of my sweatshirt ain't care. Yeah? Definitely not the theme of today. You do care about
about today?
When you go out racing and you're trying to win and something happens, that's when you ain't care about mechanical sympathy. Today, lots of mechanical sympathy. So look at this thing. It's beautiful. So it's been sitting inside all winter. And I mostly drive this thing in the summer and was hoping for a nice day today, but it's not nice. It is snowing. It is cold. So those beautiful Toyo Proxys R888s are not really made for today. I'll just have to drive a little bit extra caution. I get asked all the time, like, what my favorite car is. Even before I was a Ford sponsored driver, the RS200 was my favorite car, was and always has been. There's a lot of beautiful modern machinery. I've driven lots of beautiful modern machinery, but because this car comes from basically the golden age of rally, the groupie era, and it was specifically designed to race in that era, only roughly 200 of them were ever made. It's just one of the coolest cars in the world to me. And not that I drive this that much, but when I do drive it, I drive it pretty hard. I value driving more than just owning something that's pretty and sits in the corner. This is my supercar. It is 800 horsepower on race gas and roughly 700 on pump gas.
Okay, hold on. 800 horsepower, Ken, it's snowing out. How much horsepower is that rallycross car? Because that's like 650.
Right, well that's that we're running pump gas, so it's only 700.
Oh, okay, I feel much better. Mom, I'll be fine. Everything's fine. So Ken's gonna hop in this thing, he's gonna warm it up for us. This will take a second. I have ever sat passenger in this car. Hang on. I'm strapped in here. Boss, you all good?
No, I still have to take my shoes off. Hold on. There's a view of my feet. And look at me against the column to try and clutch. All right, Forrest.
I don't think anybody's going to question your love for this car once they realize how you have to fit into it. RS200 in the rain, Ken not wearing shoes.
You have the remote?
I do. You ready to get out of here?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, Salt Lake. Yeah, is this a bad time to tell you that I actually don't have a lot of gas in this for you? You didn't tell me you were going to drive it today.
Well, time to get some gas.
Street driving. Ken needed a coffee, so here we go.
Perfect spot.
We are in Park City.
The window's so high, there's no way I'm left to get out.
I don't even know if they can hear you until you shut this thing off.
Hi.
Hi.
It's a little two-seater.